Hello and welcome to another Live at 5 here on at Coaching the Man. And this week is like every other week. It's where we get you to check in with how you're feeling on this Saturday afternoon. Maybe you've got lost in a scroll, maybe you're a little bit distracted, and maybe you're just struggling to find focus or purpose within yourself in your day. Well, this may be a little bit of an opportunity to just extract yourself from the surroundings and just focus in on what's going on right here in this moment, and just ask yourself the really positive questions. How am I feeling? Today, I have a great guest on for you. He is a radio presenter, he is a drag star, and I'm going to bring him in. His name is Karl.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you so much for joining me on Live at 5-ish.
Ish, yeah. Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So we've been struggling to get this done for a while because you actually work between the hours of 4 and
Yeah,
7 on a Saturday.
yeah, I know, which is when Live and Five happens, strangely enough. But I'm delighted we could do this. And thanks very much again for asking me.
No, thank you for being here and thank you for doing it, because I have wanted to do it for a while, because we only reconnected maybe about a year and a half ago, but we actually go back a lot further because we went to
I
Performing
know,
Arts
yeah.
College together.
I know. How'd that work out for both of us? Neither of us are doing theatre at the moment, but nobody's doing theatre at the moment. But
Honestly,
yeah,
well, yeah.
yeah.
The big dreams to be an actor. Did you have a mission that is now completely different to where you found yourself? I think is it what, 15 years later?
It must be, yeah. Must be about that.
14.
I mean, I'm still only
2006.
20. Yeah, 14.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has it changed much? It's I suppose I've altered it on as I'm kind of on the road to, or on the path to whatever kind of career I wanted to go towards. It's altered a little bit, but I mean, I'm still doing acting projects now and again. But you know yourself, with the current climate and then the size of our little country, our little nation, it's incredibly difficult to make it as an actor here. I
Yeah.
mean, even getting a role on the stage is incredibly difficult. But you know, I've tried to kind of keep it as part of my I suppose my, so I say, repertoire of things that
Yeah.
I'm you know, I wouldn't take a lot to bring me back to, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So
Yeah.
it's still there somewhere in the background, that I do, but I'm focusing more now on broadcasting, which is something that I love, and I really didn't figure out that I actually loved it until about probably 7 years ago, when I kind of fell into it, and then I realized, oh, this is actually really quite fun and enjoyable, and I kind of found something that I never knew that I would enjoy as much.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, because you are a presenter on 98 FM, Dublin's radio station. How did you said 7 years ago you fell into it. How did that
Hmm.
come about?
Well, I started working actually when I was actually in Panto at the time when this kind of occurred, and somebody who used to go to Panto every year was Adrian Kennedy. He used to come to see the show every year in the Access Theatre in Ballymun, and we got chatting afterwards, after a show one night, and he had said that they were looking for a researcher for the phone show, which was on 104 at the time. And then I kind of fell into it that way. I was there for a year and a half, 5 nights a week, researching on the show. Started doing community radio then in Near FM for a couple of years. Presented at a weekly show there, and then this news station was kind of invented at Communicorp, which is the parent company of 98 Spin, Today FM, News Talk. They created a digital station called Freak FM, which
Okay.
was giving people the opportunity to come in and present a show in the actual building where Spin was, which was a thrill just walking into the building back then as well, because you see all the people, or you hear the voices that you'd be used to hearing on the radio. And I presented the show on Freak 3 nights a week for a year, and then that led on to a yearly role in LMFM, which then brought me back to 98. So it's been a kind of a winding path, but to get to 98, but it's been worth it, and I've learned something in every place that I've been along the way.
I guess that's the most important thing, isn't it? As you like kind of leapfrog from lily pad to lily pad, you pick up
Yeah,
different ways, and how you fell into it by having a conversation with Adrian Kennedy, and now you work for 98 FM, and
with him, yeah, as a
yeah,
colleague, which is bizarre. Yeah, it's
yeah,
so bizarre. I mean, it's great. As I said, back 7 years ago, um, it was just I was focusing on acting at the time. I had an agent. I was doing like featured extra roles. I was doing the odd speaking role here with like you get 2 words and you think you've made it. I was doing that sort of stuff.
yeah,
And then I just got a bit fed up with it. Like I was doing a show back in the late noughties called The Clinic. It was an RTE production, and it was a very good RTE production. And it ran for 7 seasons. And I kind of I was a recurring character on that for a
okay,
few episodes. And then the series ended when I had been getting busier and busier. I was playing a barman called Gav who worked in a nightclub on the show. And I was a friend of one of the main characters. And because of that, I was in a couple of scenes with him as well. And then when that ended, I was like, oh, do you know what? It was just dangling like something in front of me that I just couldn't reach for, and I just got fed up with it. So then radio came along, and I've really enjoyed it ever since.
that's really good. It's kind of I love it. I love a transition. I love how life takes us from place to place, but
Mhm.
always you end up in somewhere where you're happy. So now you're hosting a show, your own show every Saturday, but throughout the whole of this
Yeah.
pandemic, you were going in every day and filling in where you could.
Yeah, well, at the start of the lockdown, there's an evening slot in 98, which is generally automated. But at the start of the lockdown, myself and my boss kind of had a conversation that kind of went, people that are sitting at home that generally probably wouldn't be at home, or people who live alone. It's a time where they're going to be in the house 24/7, overthinking everything on their own, probably having their families, and this is the time that they'll need a voice
Yeah,
in the background, whether it's on the radio or I mean, some people watch the TV or some people listen to the radio, but it was important that there was a voice there at least up until midnight, that if
yeah,
people turned on the radio, they didn't feel so alone during the lockdown. So I since then, since the start of the lockdown, for the last three and a half months, I've been doing the Monday to Friday slot, 10 to midnight at night time, which is where midnight is. That's at night time. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, I've been doing
just for
the,
those
the,
who are
the
not
10 to
quite sure.
midnight. Yeah, midnight is after 11:59 at night. So I've been doing that during the lockdown, and it was originally the reason we said we do it was to give a voice to people who might be feeling a little bit more alone now than they ever had before. But it also helped me a lot as
Yeah,
well, because it got me out of the house. It gave me a sense of purpose every day to go to a place, to have a change of scenery, even though there weren't many bodies in the building at all, because a lot of the stuff was being done remotely by the staff in there. But getting into a car, driving to the station every night, it was a routine that I got into, and it helped me a lot as well. So I'm still doing it at the moment. Because we're not out of this yet. I mean, a lot of people think this is over, but we're in a better position than we were 3 months ago, but it's still not over. So um, it's done a lot for my head in
yeah.
lockdown anyway, getting out.
It's interesting because from the industry that we're in, or a lot of us will have just noticed immediately as like venues closed and pubs closed, that you just lost contract after contract, and it was just gone, gone, gone,
Yeah,
like a domino effect.
everything.
So that sense of purpose that you felt, and that call to action to step up and do something for everybody else that's going through, that
Mm.
that's really admirable, to be fair.
It's the sense of purpose thing is really important, because like I gig a lot, and then one day it was just the pubs were closed and it
Mm,
was it was gone. And a lot of people, there's very little chat about the entertainment industry, and not just in this country, worldwide. Like, I don't think people realize the impact that closing a theater will have, on the economy worldwide, or the impact of not having a singer in a pub or a comedian in a club. You know, it's there's a domino effect with all those roles, because if you're in a theater and you're an actor, you've got a director, you've got a director, you've got a producer, you've got, you know, you've got writers and techies and people in the box office, people selling confectionery outside the theater. Like, there's so many roles. Whereas I think when it came to entertainers, there's been no discussion about it. There's been no support for entertainers. Actually, some support came from the Civic Theatre in Tala, which they done a bursary kind of thing, where you had to submit if you were out of work or you lost your gigs, and they ran a GoFundMe and then basically sent a few €100 to people's accounts, like, just because they had lost their gigs, like, which I thought was the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
You know, and the theatre took it on themselves to do that, and now they're closed and they need help. You know, but it shouldn't be down to the entertainers to help ourselves. There should be some sort of support there for us, you know.
Especially from an industry that is primarily self-employed, and it's difficult to figure out whether you fall into what gap or what pigeonhole when it comes to being funded by the COVID relief payment. And I know a lot of people, a lot of friends in the industry in the UK who have just fallen through every loophole of what would have potentially been you know, a leg up in this crazy pandemic. So it is an industry that we all lean on in ways that a lot of people won't even realize. Even if you're going to a pub on a Friday or a Thursday night and there's music on, or even if you're going to, you know, a theater where pantos now look like they're set to be all cancelled, you know, things that you will probably not have noticed straight away because they're more important things to focus on. But down the line, as things start to open up and there is no sign of any sort of entertainment, and all these people who don't do it for the money, but they do it for the passion, have now just been cast aside, essentially.
And those people, you know, people like us, I mean, freelancers and actors, and, you know, because we can't return to theater, we have to look for other employment. So therefore we're adding to, you know, we're entering that the jobs sector where other people would have been looking for jobs as well. So it's adding tens of thousands of people. We're going to be looking for jobs as much as they are. So it's just going to put a strain on everything, on job seekers and all that sort of stuff, you know. So I think it's an important conversation to be had. You know, it just has so many implications for everybody. You know, I don't even know where I started this sentence. You see, I ramble now and again, so I probably had a different point when I started, but it's gotten me to this point now, so we'll just carry on.
In radio, normally interrupted by a song. In this moment, I'll interrupt you with another question. During all this time, all of that is really important, because it's what many feel in various different ways, especially from the people that I've spent the lockdown talking to, whether it's publicly, whether it's in groups, or whether it's one-to-one conversations. How has this whole thing in so many ways affected your mental health, and how have you been managing that?
I think at the start of it, you know, I was used to being, I only said this the other day, I was used to always trying to have an angle on things. I was used to having a goal that I was working towards, or, you know, coming up with an idea and bringing it to fruition, whether it was a show that I was planning, or preparing for the next panto, or looking for the next opportunity in radio. So it was all these things, or looking for a new venue for a gig. And then all of a sudden that was gone. And I tried for a few weeks to carry on as normal, preparing the panto, which I have done for this December. But, you know, and I was actually due to announce a show, a Dame Stuffy show for August, which, you know, I got the artwork done for. You know, I penned some jokes for that. I came up with a format for the show, and then it's just cancelled as well. So it feels like I'd done all that work and then it was ripped from underneath me. And now, you know, usually you could say, oh, well, I'll plan it for January, I'll plan it for February, but the future is so uncertain at the moment that I can't even do that. So, you know, I kind of felt a bit lost for a while. And I think that's why the going into the station every night helped a lot. You know, even seeing one of the other presenters that was there every night, and actually getting to know people that you've been around for 4 years, but you've never had the time to speak to properly. All that happened over this, which helped a lot.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine how people who were stuck indoors for 3 months. I mean, I just couldn't. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It would have killed me. Like I just couldn't. You can't turn your brain off sometimes, even though you have nothing to think about, like as in nothing to do. You just can't turn
Especially
your
if
brain
you
off.
like are always preparing for, the next month or the next week or the next
Yeah.
Period of like whether it's panto period, whether it's summer festivals or
Yeah.
Pride month. You mentioned really briefly there that about Dame Stuffy. Now Dame Stuffy is your drag personality, your alter ego. Tell us a little bit
Definitely
about
an
her.
alter ego. Yeah. She's hidden away in a box up here somewhere. I let her out on occasion. But she's definitely, I suppose, she's the complete opposite of me. Where I think I'd be quite reserved sometimes, or I'd be a quiet kind of person myself. Where the Dame Stuffy character is the complete opposite of that. And it came about 10 years ago from being in Panto.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, I realized that people are laughing at this. This is funny, and I'm enjoying every time I'm out on stage. So why don't I try and expand on it? So I done a couple of solo shows, and then it just kind of snowballed from there into doing Christmas shows, into doing a couple of pantos every year, and basically anything else. So I mean, 2019 was. The latter half of 2019 was quite busy. I'd done my first show in the city centre, which generally I would have done just in the suburbs for the past few years. But I said now is the time, because I do a lot of shows in the Red Cow. I do a lot of shows in Ballymount, so I thought I'd come in the middle and see if I can bring the two audiences together. And it was great. We had a great night. It was Liberty Hall, one night only, and it was just a fantastic experience. And afterwards I felt like I had such momentum after that I went straight into panto in December. I went straight into panto in January, took a little break at the end of January, and was coming back to plan the rest of the year. We were myself and my friend Carrie Dewey were due to start in a new venue in the Hard Rock Cafe when I got back from holidays in February. And we were due to perform on the main stage of Pride and do all these wonderful things that I hadn't done before as Dame Stuffy. And then all of a sudden it was stopped and cancelled, and everything was cancelled. And it was just like, wow, it took 10 years to build up that momentum, and all of a sudden there's a pandemic and it's over now for the moment. It stopped. But I kind of realized that I wasn't just going to sit in the house and do nothing for 3 months waiting for hopefully things to go back. So that's when I came up with the Late Night with Dame Stuffy, kind of the show that I was doing weekly, very much like this, chatting to guests, and just giving a bit of comic relief for people, because the news and even the light entertainment shows that have been on over the last 3 months have just been so, it's like, how do I describe it without saying the name of a corporation, but it's like some certain TV shows are like, come on, give me a hug, yeah, okay. And I think people need to laugh. I think we've had enough of that. I think we need to reintroduce some sort of comedy and some sort of light entertainment, so that's why I done the Late Night with James Stuffy thing, and it went really well for a few months. It was a lot of work, and that too helped me keep busy, even though I wasn't making anything from it, but well, not financially anyway, but personally, and mental health wise, I mean, it helped. It provided me with a lot,
Again,
so
with
I mean,
that
that's
sense of purpose. And it's interesting how Dame Stuffy's career is just taken off, and in the same way that your drama series where you were playing the barman was just taken off, and something could it, and then you figure out a way to adapt and change and come at it from a different angle. And I think, Dame Stuffy, the show, was great, and you can tell by looking at it that so much production and thought went into it. So, it's something that you should 100% be proud of, because it was a real joy to watch.
Yeah, and it actually it taught me a few things that I didn't know about editing and filming, and
Yeah,
because you learned. I think what happened to a lot of people during lockdown was that they realized that they had other interests or other skills that they had never looked into before. It's
yeah,
like opening Pandora's box when you realize, oh, that there's actually a lot of stuff in here that I haven't done before that I'm interested in. So I actually found editing and putting things together really interesting and really I really enjoyed it,
yeah,
strangely enough. So it's something that I had never considered doing before.
yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
So Dame Stuffy she's not like any other um drag queen. She's more of a dame, isn't she?
Yeah, I mean, she's not like the RuPaul type death drop, yes, God kind of drag queens, is how I describe it. No, she's not. She would be like, as I would describe it, a mix between Lily Savage and Dame Edna in a way.
Okay.
It's very much old style British drag, which
Yeah.
I think is some of the best. That like the tongue-in-cheek humor, the double entendres, not going too far, but knowing that you can, and having that fear that anything could happen.
Yeah.
And that's I just I'm not the best dancer, I'm not the best makeup artist. I don't lip sync well, but I just get a thrill from talking to people and talking to the audience.
And
And
you sing live.
I sing live, yeah, I sing live as well. But I just get it. I just think there's definitely something different between the RuPaul type drag queens and the British kind of old school drag queens, and that's what I would say I am.
Yeah.
Definitely old school.
Well,
And I just
there
thoroughly
is
enjoy it.
it is definitely comedy and entertainment for all ages. It's brilliant. I want to
It can push it sometimes, yeah. It can push it
she
sometimes.
didn't quite manage to make it out for this year's Pride
Yeah.
into the world of live entertainment, and I'm sure there's probably plenty in the pipeline for her. But on the subject of Pride and LGBT, what is it that Pride, because we've been talking a lot about Pride Month, and we're into July now, but it's all relative. Um, what is it that Pride means to you, or indeed the community of LGBT? What does that mean to you?
It took me a long time to accept who I was, just purely out of fear for what people might think or how people's opinion on me might change. Even when I started doing Dame Stuffy years ago, I never associated Dame Stuffy with being a drag queen. It was a panto dame. I was an actor coming in to do a panto dame,
Yeah,
and I separated that for so long. But then I came to realize that being a drag queen and being a dame, like it's one of the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. But it took me a while to realize that, like, nobody really cares. Like, people are there to support you. And I think what's important about Pride for me is that acceptance is a big thing, or having, if you feel like you have something to offer that's different, or you're afraid to express yourself, I think the LGBTQ community can be very accepting and very open to people who want to express themselves in whatever way they want to do it.
mm,
And I think that is something that I have found in the last few years of going into the Pride Parade, or I presented the Pride Parade for 98 a couple of years ago, and I had actually never been into one about 4 years ago. I'd never been into a Pride Parade. And since then, I got it then. I got what it was about.
yeah,
People think it's just about, guys and girls walking around in skimpy outfits, spraying glitter, having the absolute crack, and getting absolutely locked. But it's not about that.
yeah.
It's about people who want to express themselves in a place that they can be comfortable to do that. People will accept them. And I think that's so important. And this whole thing about, why is there a gay pride, why isn't there a straight pride? It's just like, we've had to fight and scrape and kick and scratch at our freedom to express ourselves for so long, and it's still happening. And while the country has moved on in the last few years, and we've gotten more rights and it's become more accepted, I still wouldn't feel comfortable walking down the street holding my partner's hand, because of what people think. So that's why Pride is important, and that's why
Yeah.
it's important to me. It's to keep that message alive and keep that you know, that the community active, and you know, say to younger people or older people who may not have come out yet, that it's actually okay, that there are people here like you, ready to accept you and ready to take you under their wing and tell you that it's okay to express yourself and to be
Yeah.
proud of the fact that you're gay, like, you know. So
Absolutely.
that's why it's
Again, it's
important.
about being proud and of who you are authentically. And the idea
Hmm.
of parades and pride is to just celebrate that that is now
Yeah.
100% an acceptable thing to be. And, you know, the only reason we celebrate it is because it wasn't always accepted. And we fought really hard, like you said, for rights,
Hmm.
including being able to get married, which was a huge
Yeah.
thing here in 2015. Was it 2015?
Yeah.
Yeah,
20. Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna go with
Yeah. It
2015.
was.
It feels right.
Yeah.
Because I obviously lived in London at the time. I came home to vote,
Yeah.
and you have been married since the law was changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I have. You know. So I mean, that helped a lot. In terms of accepting who I was. I mean, back when you or I were in college, like I wasn't out. You
yeah.
know. Um. You weren't out, I don't
Oh,
think. So it you know, it was both, like, it wasn't that long ago, but it was still a very different time, you
yeah,
know. And I don't, I think that, like, the strides that gay rights have taken in the last few years has helped, me personally, but helped a lot of people that in the last 10 years probably were struggling with who they were really,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
um so yeah, that's, I mean, I, I don't even know where I'm going with this again. It's I get tripped up. I get so, you know, I get so overcome with things. Um, but that's why I think it's important to maintain pride, and that acceptance is what it's about.
Yeah, 100%. Now, with all of these things that you've been squeezing into what is supposed to have been a non-busy period for most people, what is
Yeah.
it that you, Karl, do when you need to kind of wind down, switch off, chill out? What's your strategy?
Um, Usually I would listen to, and this probably sounds very strange, but I love, like, movie soundtracks. I love movie soundtracks. I would
Same.
listen to movie soundtracks. I'd have like a beer or a glass of wine, or I would read or play the PlayStation. That's what I do. I just try and switch off completely. Sometimes when social media can get a bit overwhelming, I tend to deactivate a few accounts for a couple of days, just to, you know, I'll put a few scheduled posts up to make it look like I'm still there. But sometimes it's good to take yourself away from that for a while, you know,
That's
because it can be so toxic sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
And
so
not toxic because of people, just toxic because you have fallen into a scrolling environment of, you know, struggling to focus.
yeah, yeah, and you know, you see a lot of people that, you know, are putting up things like, "Oh, I got a new Lamborghini today," and you feel like you have to compete on some level with that, and then you realize that it doesn't really matter what if they got a Lamborghini today. Like,
Yeah.
do you really want one? No. Well, yes, but you know what I mean. It's just, you're trying to compete all the time, and sometimes it's nice to just switch off and think about the good things that you have done or you are doing, and not compare yourself to other people. So that's why it's
Comparison is
nice
the
to just
thief
switch
of
off from that
joy.
for a while. Say again.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely is. 100%. I absolutely agree with that. So yeah, I mean, that's what I do to wind down.
All,
And there's
all
like
of
a good
all of
movie.
that said, how would you say that you know, when you like not comparing people and having that awareness that you need to step away from social media and stuff, would you say that you have become happy with who you are and your authentic identity?
Absolutely, in the last few years, 100%. When I started doing Dame Stuffy more, I think her confidence, and to me, she is a very different person. She is a completely separate, alive entity somewhere, you
Yeah.
know. And I think, you know, she's a hell of a lot more confident than me. She definitely gets away with saying a lot of things that I wouldn't say, personally. But I think I've taken some of her confidence and tried to incorporate it into what I do on a daily basis, and it's helped a lot. Because I see the acceptance that people have for Dame Stuffy. I mean, when a 6 foot drag queen walks into a room, there's a little bit of a, but mostly mostly they just get over that, and they take it for what it is, and it's fun, and it's a character that's joyous. And um I think I've tried to take some of the best parts of her and incorporate them into myself, which has made me a more confident person in who I am and what I do. And I've realized that, and only in the last few months, the level of support that I have out there that I didn't realize I had before. And the fact that if things don't go your way sometimes, that it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
things are not going to go your way all the time. They may not go your way for a long time, but once you keep going at it and keep not give up, like I gave up with acting a few years ago.
Mm.
I went back to it 2 years ago. If you give up, that's when you cease to be, and cease to be that unique person. So I think it's important that you just keep going, and that's that's what I've done in the last few months, is that I realized that just have to keep at it and stop overthinking things.
It's a beautiful a message. It really is, like, just to be able to kind of have that confidence that you've stolen from somebody that you created, and it just proves to you that you have everything inside you that you need to build the perfect life and be your authentic self. You mentioned a little bit earlier on about movie soundtracks. I love a movie soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I find them
Yeah.
really cool if I'm on a train or a public transport and you want to read a book, it's easy way to just drown out the screaming children and the people
Yeah,
around.
it is. And I there's some fantastic ones out there that you
Really?
listen to. Some people might think it's strange when you're driving down the road listening to the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack, but I enjoy it sometimes, and it's nice not to have to think about what the lyrics are.
Yeah. Well, John Williams, obviously famed for Home Alone and all sorts of other things. And then you've got Hans Zimmer for Pirates of the Caribbean. Do you have a favorite?
I like Jerry Goldsmith. I don't know whether you've heard of him. I like Bear McCreary. He does fantastic soundtracks. But I obviously like Hans Zimmer as well. But there's some fantastic ones out there. Michael Gianciano, I think his name is.
Okay.
He's also a good one that I listen to.
What's your favorite movie
And
soundtrack?
oh, that's a difficult one. I have different, it depends on what mood I'm in. Like, sometimes I'd listen to the Home Alone soundtrack, sometimes I'd listen to Mrs. Doubtfire, or Independence Day.
Yeah.
But I suppose everybody, Pirates of the Caribbean is a fantastic soundtrack. Or even the soundtrack to Back to the Future 3.
Yeah. I was going to say
Okay.
the soundtrack for Gladiator is brilliant as well.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah. It depends on what mood you're in. Like,
Yeah.
whatever, if you're in the mood to listen to pop and R&B, it's the same with soundtracks. If you're in the mood to listen to something orchestral or something jazzy, there's everything there.
It's amazing how they can change your mood even though they haven't got words in them, because you could be listening to one and then suddenly Pirates of the Caribbean comes on and you're walking a little bit faster.
Yeah, I know. Gives you a pep in your step, all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Listen, thank you. I'm going to leave it there. We've been chatting for so long.
You.
I am conscious I am using up your time, but thank you so much for coming on Live at 5. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy that we managed to make it happen.
Me too.
I'm looking forward to seeing everything that comes out of the plans you have for Karl and the plans you have for Dame Stuffy, and hopefully we will do something in the future again, and we'll be able to have a chat and figure out what happened post COVID-19. But keep doing what you're doing. It's really, really admirable, and I love it.
Likewise, Dave. Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.